Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I am Christine Dixon of The Ordinary Sacred, and I'm so happy to be with you. It's been a little over a week since I made a video because I had a pretty nasty stomach flu. And someone in the Ordinary Sacred group asked if I could make a video about how I approached working with my parts around being sick, because I know it can be really difficult. It's really difficult for a lot of my parts, and I've identified several different ones who have um, get activated whenever there's an illness. So I'm excited to talk to you about that. Of course, it's going to be my personal experience and just an example, but never prescriptive for you. Always go in and check with your parts about what their concerns are. Before I get into that, though, I just have two quick things. One is that there was some confusion about when I was going to do teaching and Q&A this month, because I changed the schedule a little bit because we have been having a lot of power outages here in Ecuador. We're actually leaving Ecuador next week and going back to the States. I have many parts who are very sad about that because it's been so wonderful here. Of course, excited to see our kids and grandkids. But this is just such a special, tranquil place. Um, so we'll be back in the States. So the next session with me, free session, which will be, I might do a little bit of a little exercise with working with ancestors, and then we'll have a large section of the time for Q&A. That will be the last Saturday of November, the Saturday after American Thanksgiving. It's November 30th, and it'll be at 1 Central Time. So that's the next thing with me. Of course, there's free member-led groups every Tuesday. And so if you want to hear about those, I'll put a link below to join the Ordinary Sacred IFS community Facebook group. So you can hear about all of that. And oh, and there was one other thing I wanted to say. There is a wonderful member of the Ordinary Sacred who watches these videos. Hi, Gracie. I wanted to shout you out because Gracie has done something that was so inspiring to me. And I know the last video I made was about working with my parts around family, but also around the election. And she's been sharing with me these ways in which she's basically empowering her parts to have agency in her own environment, in her local community. And so, even though many of her parts with the results of the election felt overwhelmed and fearful, like many of you may have felt, and this doesn't just apply to those who felt that way, it's really what she said she did is that she made this kind of agreement, plan with her parts to do what she could do. So she decided to give a certain amount of money each month to um, underprivileged communities, to help underprivileged communities. And then she decided to go and get a training to be a tutor, basically, to help kids in low income areas learn how to read. And I just thought it was so inspiring to my system that instead of putting all of our power, giving it all over to government or authorities, that we can take it back and say, what is mine to do? What can I do in the relationships closest to me and my local community to honor my own values and to perpetuate the things that are important to me? And we all can do that. And I just felt so inspiring to me. So I wanted to share that with all of you. And I invite you to have a little parts meeting and see what ideas come from your parts. What can you do? What do you have agency over that reflects your values? So, okay, without further ado, I'm going to talk about this nasty illness that I had. And so, there are many, many parts for me that come up when I get ill. Uh, And I invite you, if you are like me, again, you can do this with any topic whatsoever, but really anything that's activating to your system. I call it a round table parts discussion, and I'll get a piece of paper and I'll write in the middle the topic. So it might be sickness or illness or just any kind of physical symptom. And really listen, kind of, it's like a brainstorm, right? Of what parts are reacting, what parts have concern about what are their fears, what are their needs. And you can listen to what happens in your body somatically, any emotions that come up, any kind of thoughts, things that parts are saying, any fears, like I said, that come up, and just write them all around the circle and really give them attention. Really listen to where their fears come from, because often it's something that happened to you or to them or to another part of you in the past. And so their fears are valid, and you can really validate them. Yes, this happened. And from self, you can update them if there's something that's different now, or you can just give them comfort and say, I'm going to be with you, even if and when this worst case scenario happens. And it's a really powerful exercise to do anytime your system is activated. But particularly for me, this time wasn't as bad as it could be. So I'm going to explain basically the supports that were in place so that certain parts who normally would get activated didn't. And then I'll tell you about some of the parts that did get activated. So one thing is that because we are here in this place where the weather is so wonderful, even though we've had power outages, we've had fires in the hills, the weather is a perfect, 70 degrees every day, Fahrenheit. I don't know what that is in Celsius, but it's perfect. And so we can leave the windows open. We can go outside at any time. We can get fresh air. We can move around. This is not the case in Houston, where we're from, because 6 months out of the year, it's so incredibly hot that we have to stay inside with all the windows closed and the air conditioning on. And for my system, it feels so suffocating. I feel so much more grounded, alive, well, healthy when I can get regular fresh air every day and go outside. So I'm able to do that here. So I already feel, the word I like to use is tranquil, because here in Ecuador, they talk a lot about tranquilo, tranquilidad. And that's what this valley is, especially. It's very tranquil. The nervous system, as soon as I enter into the valley, it's like I take this sigh of relief. And so my baseline is very relaxed. Now, in the States, if I were to have this very same illness, my nervous system's natural base state would be much, much higher already, because I would have so much stress over this accumulation of things, not being able to get fresh air, not being able to go outside and move, toxic things that are in the food that it's in the States, just a lot of different stresses around getting places, getting what I need, stresses with people I'm interacting with, or things I have to do, all of those kinds of things. So there would be such the base amount of stress would already be up to here. So then a sickness will just send it way over the top, right? So that's the number one thing of why it was a little bit easier to deal with here. The second reason is, let's see, I wrote it down. Is that what I was experiencing was a symptom that I have had in the past. So it's really interesting. When I have what you would consider a common cold, right? I have congestion. So when I had COVID, actually, we had COVID when we were here in Vilcabamba last, and we thought, we feel better having COVID here than having some little thing in the States, because we were just able to fully sleep at night. It was cool at night. the fresh air is coming in, we're able to rest during the day. It's just such low stress. Uh, so while it's not fun to have the illness, it's just so much easier. So, and also because those symptoms, right, a sore throat, a cold, I am familiar with. I've had them since I was a child. I always got over it. So my system is like, oh yeah, we know what this is. We'll get over it. Same thing with a stomach flu, right? I've had that before several times as a child, a little bit as an adult. So it wasn't something totally out of the blue. So my system will react particularly when I have a symptom that I've never had before. My heart starts having some kind of palpitation. I have a pain somewhere in my body that I've never had before. When I start having like a collapse, like I'm going to faint response. There's no real illness. It's more just this fear of why is this happening to me? So I have parts that are so afraid of the unknown and will rush to worst case scenario and will try to analyze, and is it cancer? Is it something deadly? Am I going to die? And they kind of rally around that. So my parts were not as active around this because it was something that they've experienced before, even though it was very bad. So without giving too much information, I was essentially purging without eating anything, every half hour to hour. For the first couple days, it was 20 plus times a day. And it was exhausting and depleting. I wasn't able to eat anything for the first couple days. And then I only ate toast and banana for several days after that. I was trying to get enough liquids and all these things, but it was pretty severe, but it was a symptom that my body had experienced before. So there was not a lot of fear and chatter around it per se. But there was another thing that also really helped support me in this. And this is something that you might try as an experiment, because I don't expect you to believe in it until it's been proven to your system that it works. So what I did was the first day when I was laying in the bed, just constantly purging, exhausted, in pain, I asked my future self to come to me laying in the bed. And so I imagined my future self kind of sitting next to me on the bed and stroking my hair, holding my hand, and just giving me comfort and saying, "You're not alone. I'm here with you." And I asked her, "What is this?" Because I did have parts that were like, why am I having this? Did I eat something poisonous, or um, is it a parasite? Is it a virus, a bacteria? What is it? And so again, this is just like when you ask a part a question, you don't have to think up the answer. There's no thinking it up. There's no trying to figure it out whatsoever. It's as if there's a person in front of you and you ask them a question and they tell you something and you receive it without having any idea what they were going to say before that. So that's the same kind of thing. I just am asking this part, or my future self, about it. And what she said very calmly and clearly and directly was, this is a virus and it's going to get much worse before it gets better. That's what she said. And she was so just like calm and confident about it that I thought, okay. And what's fascinating is what my parts found comfort in was the fact that she said, it's going to get better. Because I have another cluster of parts that gets really activated around illness and really around everything. And I don't know if it's part of being neurodivergent. It might be. But I have parts that get really, the way I say it is that they think that the present is going to be perpetually the same into the future, into the forever future. So they project whatever's happening in this moment into forever future. So if I'm really happy right now, they think I'm going to be happy forever. And then they're very disappointed when that doesn't happen. but likewise, if I'm having a pain or a symptom or something distressing, they think this is going to continue perpetually forever. And that feels really scary and really overwhelming. So even though my future self said it's going to get worse before it gets better, and it did, it sure did. The hope, the assurance that, but it is going to resolve, it is going to get better, allowed my parts to relax and say, okay, then we'll just get through it. We'll just do what we need to do and get through it. So that was super supportive. And again, I trust when I ask my parts questions, when I ask my body questions, when I ask my future self questions, I trust the answers because it's been proven again and again and again and again and again to be true. So in this case, I think 2 days after my future self told me this, I did have a test done, and it came back that I had rotavirus, which is a really nasty virus that usually young children get. It's kind of like, my understanding is it's kind of like chickenpox, where when you get it as a child, it's really nasty. But then you kind of have immunity, so you can get it again, but it's very, very slight and it doesn't really affect you too much. But if you don't have it as a child and you have it as an adult, it's really severe. Montezuma's Revenge is coming to my my mind. But so again, but I think Montezuma's Revenge might be a parasite. I don't know. Anyways, but it's because it was the first time I believe I had it. It was very, very severe. And the doctor said, you you can't take anything, which my parts who are really skeptical of meds and have had really negative experiences with meds were grateful for that. So she did try to prescribe me an antibiotic, and I met with my parts and they chose not to take it because the result was that this was from a virus. And so, yeah, so the virus itself is what my body was doing in purging was my body's way of getting rid of the virus. So she said, don't take Imodium, don't take any kind of medication to stop yourself from purging, because that is your body's way of getting rid of this virus, even though it's taken 10 days to get it out of the system. And so every time I would purge, I would say, thank you, body. Thank you. I so appreciate the work you're doing. You're working so hard. I'm going to try to replenish your fluids. I'm going to give you rest and support you in this job that you're doing. I'm so grateful for you, right? So being able to show my body gratitude for not mad, oh, I can't believe I'm having this symptom. It's so terrible. No, the symptom is my body's way of healing itself. So that was really great. Another thing, super supportive, was that my husband, Brian, went and got me the food I needed. He went to the doctor for me, which is incredible here in Ecuador, that someone else can go to the doctor in your stead. I basically did a voice clip of my symptoms. He went, collected a sample from me, took it in. He's able to go get, I did get a probiotic and some Tylenol from the pharmacy. And yeah, he was able to do all this for me, and he was willing and so supportive and loving in doing that. And then, because we're staying in this kind of community space right now, the owner of this space drove Brian around to all the appointments, acted as a translator for him. And, there's like a restaurant on the hill where we're staying. And so Brian could go there and say, can I just have some plain white bread and bananas for the 5th day in a row, please? And just you could ask them for whatever I needed. And it was very convenient and easy. And because we know everybody, they would ask how I was doing every time. And then, of course, when I got better, when I would go in, oh, you're better. Yay. We're so happy to see you. And so it feels like a hug, right? Like the supports, like other people care and they're trying to help, right? In any way they can. So that helped with other parts of mine. I'm realizing now, like all the parts that normally get so activated around illness, had so much support here, particularly because another really big set of parts. When I was ill for that a year and in and out of the hospital, the biggest parts that got activated were parts who believed that I was a burden, that without being able to do anything for other people, I was not contributing, I had no worth, and I was a burden on other people who had to do everything for me. Oh, those parts were so, parts who felt like a burden were so burdened during that time. That was the most anguish. And so this time I had a little bit of that, but because my husband is also feeling so tranquil and at this wonderful baseline of, you know, tranquility, he's able to help me and give from overflow to me. And he's wonderful. Like sometimes I would have parts that would say, I'm feeling like a burden. I'm so sorry, those kinds of things. And he will reassure them. No, I love helping you. I love being there for you. I want to be there for you. So he's really good about reassuring those parts. And then just seeing, people, not just him having to do things, but other people also supporting him, was really, really great. So let me see if there were any other parts that came up for me. I think I got them. So there were the parts that were terrified of the unknown, the parts who felt like a burden, the parts who project the now into the forever future. Um, oh, and then one other one, again, that was really helpful is that, you know, my body had a collapse response before coming here, which is partly why we're here. It said no, it said, I need you to do less. And so I already had less of a schedule here. And I was only doing, one teaching a month and one Q&A a month. And I had scheduled the Q&A for the end of the month, which is great. And the first teaching was the Grok party. And so there were two women from Grok that were leading it, and I didn't have to lead it. So that let my parts so off the hook, because the other set of parts that I have is that when I get sick and then I have to cancel things, I have to cancel appointments or trainings or whatever I've promised other people, my parts feel desperate, like I'm letting people down. I'm disappointing them. They're thinking I'm irresponsible. I have parts who just have anguish over having to cancel anything. So I did not have to cancel anything, though I have worked a lot with those parts. And some of you know I've canceled a lot of things. So I am capable and able to prioritize my body and my system in order to cancel things. But those parts still feel that kind of angst, and then I just need to comfort them. And people are really wonderful about it. The types of people who come to my groups are generally very, very kind and empathetic. And so they are really reassuring to those parts as well. So again, I don't know if this video is super helpful to you. What I'm trying to explain is that the reason why it was not so difficult, and it's because there was such a foundational level of lifestyle choices beforehand, so that how I would have experienced this illness in the States and with a different lifestyle would have been so much more difficult. And that now I'm supporting all of these parts, my body, my nervous system, the support system around me, my schedule not being too much, the ability to be flexible and say no to things, like all of those layers then support that if and when I get sick, it's not as big of a deal. And the last thing I'll say though, is that I often, particularly when I notice my system's activated, but just in general, regularly, I will meet with my parts And the position I like to take when I meet with my parts is I lie on my back on the bed. And because it feels like just a very relaxing position where my parts can come out and I can imagine them either in the space kind of right above me or laying next to me or in my body. And I can just say, who's here? Tell me what you want me to know. What do you need? And so, because this illness basically put me in that position for many, many hours of the day, I had many parts meetings. I would just regularly check in because they know that's almost like there's a connection between that position and checking in with them. So I would just regularly say, who's here? What are you worried about? If an emotion of sadness would come up, I might say, is there something you want me to know about why you're sad? Or do you just want to cry and release stress? There doesn't have to be a reason. You're allowed to feel sad. Sometimes there were parts making up a story about like why we're sad or why this emotion's coming up, and other times it's just a physical thing. Again, just being open to whatever they tell me. And so it's not, I don't want to make it out like it was super easy and there was no problems at all. That's not what it's like when you're a self-led system, in my experience. It's that the parts continually are coming up and they're being met with self-love and compassion, and they're coming up and being met with love and self-compassion, and they're coming up, and it's just this constant flow of being met with love and attention. And what do you need? I'm here with you. You're not alone. I'm here to comfort you. I'm here to listen to you. Do you need me to speak for you to someone else? Do you need reassurance about something? Do you need me to go back to a moment that's not now, that where something happened, and redo it? Do you just need me to reassure you and stroke your hair and comfort you and let you know your body's doing its job, update you? That's what it is. It's in each new moment, meeting whatever parts come up. So again, I was very familiar with the typical parts that get really activated. There's several clusters, right? And so you might relate to some of those clusters of parts when you get sick, just the fear of the unknown, the overwhelm, fear of being a burden to other people, not being self-reliant, the fear of, is this going to go on forever and ever? Am I going to have to cancel plans or disappoint people? You might have others as well that come up for you. And so I encourage you to just get curious and listen to those parts and whatever they need from you. It can be really difficult to be sick for a lot of our parts, especially the parts who think that their worth is in doing things and going and accomplishing and serving other people. And they might need a lot of comfort, a lot of reassurance from yourself, or they might need you to go back to times when it really wasn't safe for them to be sick. Yeah, and if you have any other comments about your experience of working with your parts when you feel sick, or you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments below.